What?
Wrong answer. Be nice. I'd hate to have to come back here.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. It's great to have the receipts. It's our job on this program to have the receipts. And so when Dr. Fauci was pardoned in the small hours of the morning before Joe Biden left office, everybody said, why? Why would you need to pardon Dr. Fauci? Luckily, we know. We've been studying and paying attention on this program, and we know exactly why you got to pardon Dr. Fauci, because he created COVID, because Dr. Fauci is the world's greatest monster, because Dr. Fauci arguably has caused more pain and suffering than any single human that ever lived on this planet. And he's still alive. And so you could prosecute him, actually. And so how do you know that? Well, because the first day of President Trump's administration in 2016, 2017, Dr. Fauci said this.
Is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And
oh, how do you know with such certitude, Dr. Fauci? You seem to be a scientist, and if you are a scientist at your core, then the only thing you know is what you don't know. Everything is randomized. You have to actually wait for the data and the information. But here is a doctor and a scientist, and the most highly paid scientist in all of our federal government, most highly paid employee in all of our federal government, is going, no, there will be a surprise outbreak. I can say this with total certitude. I guarantee you will have a surprise outbreak. Here's why he could say that. Because Dr. Fauci created COVID. How did Dr. Fauci create COVID? Well, because after 9/11, the American government stupidly passed probably the dumbest bill ever written, called the Patriot Act, and that had a massive carve-out for bioweapons. And the bioweapons development and monitoring came under the purview of a guy named Dr. Fauci. He started creating bioweapons himself here in America. To his credit, Barack Obama banned that practice of something called gain of function. So Dr. Fauci moved his operations overseas to China. He paid a company called EcoHealth Alliance to go run the actual traps, and then to go and create super viruses like COVID. Then if you study the actual molecular makeup of COVID, you'll see that it is literally a COVID molecule taken from a horseshoe bat that lives naturally in China. It is naturally occurring in that regard, except for this. They add a spike protein. That spike protein allows it to be transmissible to humans. Without the spike protein, it can't hurt you at all. The bat could fly right into your soup and you would get nothing. So they manipulate the virus to make it transmissible to humans, and then they visited that upon the entire world. They created it. And that's what Dr. Fauci did. Now, he did this through a carve-out of CIA funding for this. CIA is a big black box. Nobody knows where the money goes. So it's easy to pay for illegal stuff like this, and that's what they did. And that's why the CIA, up until this very moment, when John Ratcliffe, Donald Trump's CIA director, got into the chair, had denied that this ever came from a lab in Wuhan, because they're guilty of helping create it. But now that Donald Trump's in charge, the CIA immediately changed their tune and said, oh yeah, wait a second, COVID actually did come from a lab. Would you look at that? CIA said that it shifted its previous assessment, that the COVID virus just came from zoonotic transmission, even though they literally can't find, there's zero evidence for it to have a zoonotic transmission. There's zero evidence that this virus was just randomly happened, that randomly these bats got human spike proteins. Didn't happen. Okay? Molecularly impossible. Now the CIA assesses that the research-related origin of the COVID-19 pandemic is more likely than the natural origin based on the available body of reporting, the CIA spokesperson said in a statement. CIA considers to assess both the research and related natural origin scenarios in COVID-19 pandemic remain plausible. Oh, okay. The spokesperson said there is a low confidence in the judgment, and that's because they're probably still covering their asses, shredding their documents, and deleting their own involvement in it. As soon as they're done, it'll be a high confidence. So now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the official stance of the White House that this came from China. And this was Karoline Leavitt today rubbing it into the faces of the reporters.
I would just like to point out that several years ago, when I was working in this press shop and President Trump would take to this podium to brief the American people on COVID-19, he suggested that COVID very well may have came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And many members in this very room mocked him for that, said he was spewing conspiracy theories. He was not. We now know that to be the confirmable truth. It took many years for it to come out, but the president was right in this instance again. Sure.
President was right. Any receipts?
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It comes from China. I want to be accurate.
China. Listen to Trump. Listen to Trump.
The worst attack we've ever had on our country. This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this. And it should have never happened. Could have been stopped at the source. Could have been stopped in China. It should have been stopped right at the source. And it wasn't.
Could have been stopped at the source. What did Donald Trump know? Well, the White House is now certifying that COVID did come from a lab in China, and now, of course, they're going to rip the layers back and show who funded all that. Because China wasn't like doing these experiments just for fun. Who decided to loose this virus on the entire world? President Trump would take this podium, and you would all laugh at him, and now he's been proven correct. COVID came from a lab in China. Now, who released it? How'd it get out? Karoline Leavitt just hung the media out to dry for denying the COVID lab leak to their faces. Leavitt calls out the Biden regime and fake news being wrong about the man-made origins of COVID, and you have to ask the question, why? Well, we've done our best to try and sum that up for you. Ladies and gentlemen, the House Committee on COVID Origins came out with the exact same assessment that it came from China. And, well, it's pretty easy to see what they were trying to get away from with this Dr. Fauci pardon.
The pandemic. During his testimony before the committee, Fauci claims he never tried to dismiss the idea that COVID-19 came from a lab.
I don't think the concept of there being a lab leak is inherently a conspiracy theory. It's the kind of distortions of that particular subject, like it was a lab leak and I was parachuted into the CIA like Jason Bourne and told the CIA that they should really not be talking about a lab leak.
Thank you.
That's the conspiracy.
Appreciate that.
However, there was bipartisan agreement that other public health officials were not truthful about their dangerous research. The committee says they tried to cover their tracks, and Wenstrup hopes the DOJ will consider prosecution.
Prosecutions, baby. COVID did come from a lab, and Karoline Leavitt just confirmed it. The voice of the White House. Conspiracy theorists right again. Up 1,000 to 0. President Trump was right again. CIA assessment, which Biden tried to bury. China virus originated from the Wuhan lab, and there were multiple reports that Dr. Fauci did travel in the dark of night to the CIA to sit with their scientists and probably blackmail them into saying that they didn't know where COVID came from. Because that was the position of the CIA for the last 4 years. Yeah. Real intelligence agency. Yeah. Oh, the moment of truth is upon us. And it feels so freaking good. Please join us, ladies and gentlemen, on this channel for more truth. And prosecute Fauci. It's your boy, Ben. See ya.